So let's have a conversation now about emotions. What a mess. Emotions. Where did these all come from? And why are they all surfacing within me at one time? Why, in one moment, am I angry and frustrated right after I got done crying, right after I got done feeling depressed and sitting on the couch eating cheesecake for the whole night, right? They don't come in a nice, neat package. Emotions can be messy. They can be disruptive. They come from us in a place we're not even sure we even had some of these emotions, and certainly not as highlighted as they are now. When you go through a divorce, right, when we have emotional moments, you're driving in the car and somebody cuts you off and you get angry. That's a moment. When you suddenly find out that something's changed at work and oh, did I do something wrong? Why did that happen that way? We have a moment with that emotion. When you go through divorce, those emotions are just free floating. There's no range on them anymore. Nobody's saying, well, we're going to bring out your anger for 1 to 3 this afternoon, and then we're going to bring out your guilt and shame tonight at 8 while you're binging on your ice cream. And then we're going to bring out your loneliness and despair from 7 in the morning to like 9, right? It doesn't work that way. They have no control. They just come and they come and they come, and you're trying to figure out, how do I deal with this when I'm trying to get to work, get the kids to school, get myself to think about what I need to do for the weekend? How do I manage all this stuff when inside my emotional state is just a mess? MESS, all caps, right? And nobody understands what that's like except you. You're the only one who can figure out what your emotions are like. And each one of us has different ways of managing our emotions. What we feel, how we think about things, it's situational to us. Now it's been heightened. Now it's going on all the time. So how do we manage that? You can't. You can't. If we could, you wouldn't be listening to this, and we wouldn't be having to figure out how do we work through these emotional upheavals that we go through in our life. That's just who we are. Recognizing the fact that the emotional spiral that you're going on is normal to this process. This isn't something that you signed up for. This isn't something that you wake up in the morning and you say, you know what, I think for today, I'm going to put on that shirt or dress that makes me feel miserable all day long. I don't do that. But the emotions don't care. They just come and they hit you at moments where, holy jeez, where did this come from? That's okay. You're allowed to let those emotions run rampant for right now. There are ways we can work through it. And we're going to be talking about that in some of our conversations about some of the specific emotions that we're going through. And what I've done is just highlight 2 or 3 of them because they tend to be more global for people who are going through divorce. And one thing I want to mention too about when I talked about social, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, was it's okay to find a group of people who've gone through this too. Right? If you know some other people who've gone through divorce, it's okay to listen to them a little bit. Their situation is going to be different from yours, but it's nice to have someone who understands the language. You don't have to explain everything because they've been through it too. That's kind of a nice comfort. You can just sit there and they'll just say, yeah, I know what that's like. Let me share what happened to me. And you kind of have this nice dialogue with someone. You don't have to define it, and they understand it too. So for the first emotion, what we're going to be dealing with are the wonderful combination of guilt and shame. And as we work through that in the conversation, I'm going to talk to you about what it means. What does guilt mean? What does shame mean? And what's the best way we can work through that? So let's talk about guilt and shame. 2 emotions that surface a lot, but we often get them confused about what does that mean. Guilt, which we all have. We all feel guilty about certain things. And yes, I feel guilty too. This can go out to my wife because she says I never get guilty about anything. Guilt comes because we've done something wrong. We feel bad that, you know what, I forgot to pick up the stuff you asked me to. I should have gotten it. Or, I needed to get that report to you by Wednesday and I just forgot. I couldn't get to it. I tried. I'm sorry. I feel bad about that. That's guilt. Guilt motivates us to kind of correct that, right? I should have gotten this done, but I didn't. So let me go ahead and make this up. Let me get that back. When we go through divorce, we feel guilty because we didn't do something about keeping the marriage together, keeping the relationship going. Maybe there might be, right? It's not all one person in a relationship. Sometimes more than you, or maybe the partner has a lot more credibility to why we're in this divorce state at this point. But guilt can be a good thing if it's allowing us to move forward in a better way, not when it keeps us stuck with feeling like we could have done something better. What often gets confused with guilt is shame. Shame comes across as, I'm a bad person. I'm not worthy of being in a relationship. It's not just that I've done something wrong, it's about me. Shame becomes an internal definition of who you are. And that's where it gets confusing. And that can be really debilitating. Because now something that's happened, probably not your fault as much, maybe you have a little piece of it, but certainly in the case when we talked about the blocks, finding out that someone's had an affair or decided they don't want to be in a relationship anymore. Or maybe you've gone to couples therapy and it's not working and your partner's saying, I'm not doing this anymore. All right, maybe there's some ownership from both of you. But it's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you are unworthy of being in a relationship. And that's where shame really reaches up and grabs us to a point where it is hard to rise up even further. Because if I'm at 50 feet above the surface, or maybe I'm getting my physical and my social parts together a little bit, and I'm just able to manage my day, let alone my week and my weekends, oh, that's right. I screwed this up. I'm a bad person. I'm responsible for this work. I should have done something different. And you see how it overlaps between shame and guilt. I should have done something different because I'm a bad person. No, not necessarily, right? When you start feeling that I'm unworthy, I'm someone who can't be loved or be in a relationship, and maybe this isn't the first time. When you go through divorce, sometimes you start thinking back at previous relationships and you think, this is like the third or fourth relationship that didn't quite work for me. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who can't do relationships very well. Let's put that one aside right now. Right? We don't need to pick that up until much, much later. Let's just focus on what that emotion of shame feels like for you right now. When I feel like I'm the only one who is unworthy of being loved or in a relationship, we got to change that around. And I want to have a conversation with you about how we take that shame, that guilt, and make it work for us in a better way. So let's talk about how do we move through what we call guilt or shame, right? As long as we're clear on what the definitions are. Guilt is you forgot to do something, so I can make up for that. Shame is when we start looking at ourselves and thinking, I am a bad person. I'm the one who's caused this divorce. I'm the one who's gotten myself into this situation. First thing to do is recognize it. What's the difference between guilt and shame? Did I really do something so bad that got me into this place? I don't know. That's something you have to figure out. But to say that you're a bad person or that you're beating yourself up over it, that is more shame. And the way we work through shame is one, recognizing it, claiming it, naming it, call whatever you want, and realize, all right, I'm beating myself up a lot for this. And I maybe can put this in a different way. Yeah, maybe I don't feel like I'm loved or I'm worthy of being in a relationship, but let's reframe the narrative. Let's have a different conversation with yourself because you're the one who has to deal with you all the time. So start talking to yourself. You know what? Maybe this didn't work out the way I wanted. Maybe I have some ownership into it, but I'm also a human being. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. That's what this whole thing called life is about, right? We're not going to go through things and everything's going to hit us just right and we're going to be doing okay. So maybe there are things that maybe when you look back, think, maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should have gotten out of this sooner. It happens. Give yourself a rest on that one. You can let that one go. If you can catch it before it starts to tell you who you are and define you, that I'm a bad person, that's where the work comes in. And it's hard. I'm not saying this is easy. You just snap your fingers and suddenly you feel better. This is hard work. Might be the hardest thing you've ever had to do, is work through these emotions that you're going through. So let's take that narrative now that you keep telling yourself and saying, you know what? I'm not very good. I'm a creep. I'm lousy. I shouldn't have done this. And I'm a bad person. Let's reframe it. Yeah, I made some mistakes, but I'm still okay. I'm really not that bad of a person. And let me do some things that'll remind me that I've done a lot of good things in my life, that I am a good person. I am doing a good job with the kids. I am doing a good job at work. And I am able to make a difference in my life. Part of this comes from you. It's an internal narrative that if you can start telling yourself these things, that, you know what, not my whole life has been so bad, that I'm not a bad person, that somehow there was something about me that the other person wanted to get into a relationship with. And we forget about that. We forget about that part of the relationship in this point this was kind of nice. And it was part of me that was bringing to that relationship. So when you think of yourself as being unworthy, just remember, you got into a relationship because there was parts of you that the other person wanted to be with. And we lose that. All the pieces that fell apart, we lose that piece somewhere. We got to find it again. Change the narrative in your head. Remind yourself that you are a good person. And I know it sounds like one of those pop psychology things where we just give ourselves daily affirmations. There's some truth to that. It makes some sense. If we start reminding ourselves each day, you know what, I'm doing okay. I am a good person. I can make it through this day. Because it's not about how bad I am. It's about how good I can be and how good I have been. This divorce just knocked you off, dropped you off on the side of the highway where you're driving down the road and you're wondering, all right, where do I go? How do I get here? I'm not even sure what direction I'm going. And I just got thrown out of the car. You didn't get thrown out because you're a bad person. You got thrown out because it just didn't work, or you threw somebody else out, whatever works for you. A daily narrative, just remind yourself, I'm okay. I'm a good person. There are other people who kind of like me sometimes. They must like me for a reason. Giving that narrative to yourself helps you move forward in a physical way, too. We talked about the physical and the social part. Try to find those things that you do really well. I had a client once who was a mother, 2 children, really had a rough relationship with her partner. Things fell apart. And in our conversations that we're having individually through our sessions, at one point she had mentioned that she gives piano lessons. And we talked a little bit about that, giving piano lessons. What is that like for her? Why does she like to do it? And in just casual conversation, she mentioned, oh yeah, she said, I played at Carnegie Hall when I was 11 years old. I'm sorry, Carnegie Hall in New York City? She says, oh yeah, I was, in a contest for classical piano and I won the contest and, first prize was going to Carnegie Hall and playing on a Saturday. It was just one of those little things. And she kept talking and talking. And I said, no, wait. You played at Carnegie Hall at 11 years old, classical piano. Yeah. I said, wow, that's impressive. Do you still play? Oh no, I haven't, since we've been married and the kids and I just don't play anymore. I said, there's something about you that allows you to play so well that you performed at Carnegie Hall at 11. I don't care what kind of contest it was. That's impressive. That's about you. You can't be such a bad person that you can play so well on a piano that you won a competition to get to Carnegie Hall. That's still there somewhere. We just got to find it and let that come out. But because she had gotten herself into such a point where she kept telling herself that she wasn't a good person, that it was her fault. Again, guilt, shame. It wasn't her fault. Maybe there were things that she did she might have, thought about, maybe I should have done it better. That doesn't necessarily equate that you're a bad person. So making that distinction between guilt and shame and recognizing shame is a negative emotion, it pulls us down and we want to rise up. We want to come up from 50 to 40 feet now because we're starting to breathe a little bit more. Our physical part's getting better. Our social part's not doing too bad. We kept most of the people that we like still with us, right? Work has been a little bit nicer because a couple people know and they've picked up some of the slack a little bit. That's okay. We want to keep rising up a little bit more because as we start to come up with that tank, the oxygen's starting to come up again. And now we can start seeing little glimmers of light up at the surface. So when shame hits you, take a moment, recognizing, I don't have to carry this around with me. I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person, and I do good things. Remind yourself of the good things that you have done. Take action on it. Do something that reminds you that you are a good person. And slowly, just like we're starting to rise up from the surface, slowly, the shame will start to melt away.